This nurse sees me sitting there and she says, "John, is that you?" And I looked up, and it's this nurse lady I had known from Athens.
Mm-hmm.
And she sat down on the floor, and like all good nurses, she started asking questions. They had me in the emergency room
The
in
day that
second.
your son was born.
Yeah.
Picture this. You have been waiting for months, actually for 9 months, for this moment where you and your wife have this newborn baby. You're in the hospital and you're carrying this infant back down the hallway to place him back in the nursery. And as soon as you place the baby down, you're so exhausted that you've got to take a seat and literally sit down in the hallway. And that's a moment when our nurse sits down next to you and starts asking a few questions. And within an hour of having a newborn baby, you find yourself on a hospital bed in an emergency room because there's something really, really wrong with you. Well, you're going to hear that moment from my guest today, John Barry, on this episode of Unbeatable.
These stories of triumph over adversity will help you handle your toughest days in life. You're listening to Unbeatable with Jeff Struker.
Hey, again, thanks for being willing to be on the show. We'll just get started. Let's talk about how you ended up making music. Where did you get your start? Why did you want to start writing and singing?
Sure. Yeah. I was born in Aiken, South Carolina, moved to Atlanta when I was a kid, about 8 years old, and lived in Decatur, Georgia, just a suburb of Atlanta, on Thomas Road, and had three buddies, Brian, Sam, and Jeff, and we were pretty inseparable, hung out together all the time. My dad had a garage set up, the shop set up in the garage, sort of separate from the house, you know. But the coolest thing my dad had in that little shop was an AM radio set on shop table about the size of a bread box, you know, big plastic white radio. And we used to listen to WQXI 79 AM out of Atlanta. Gary McKee was the morning DJ there. Man, the music he played was awesome. I mean, there weren't any format lines, you know.
Yeah.
He just played great music. And that's where I really discovered my love for music, was there on Thomas Road. Well, my older brother played guitar, and like usual, the younger brother wants to learn to play guitar too. And of course, my brother was too busy to teach me, but my mom taught me 3 chords. One of them wasn't quite right, but it was close. But I loved it. I just fell in love with it.
Yeah, and to make it in the country music industry, everybody has said this for decades. You have to know 3 chords and be willing to sing the truth, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So you started singing pretty early, right? You started off a little bit while you were still a teenager, and then started singing for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Well, yeah, I guess I played all around the country. I played all over. There's an organization called Young Life. They work with high school kids, and we're fortunate to get to go to a lot of their camps around the country and go to different cities and play for those kids. They were just a great bunch, great organization. But in 1984, I think it was, a friend of mine who was going to school there wanted to know if I'd come up to Athens to play, and I said sure. It pays, I plays, you know, and. So she booked me at this club every other week it's 3 weeks over a 5-week period. And so the guy was playing bass with me at the time, Mike Steele, who is still playing bass with me. We went up there and did this gig for 3 weeks over 5 weeks. And by the end of the second week playing there, they booked us that was in the spring. They booked us for the entire summer. And before summer was over, they booked us for the entire next school year.
Yeah.
And so we moved to Athens, and that's kind of where it all. And man, game weekends were just insane.
Amazing, right?
Yeah. So much fun.
Hey, for those of you who are tuning in that are not from Georgia or from the southeastern United States, we're not talking about Athens, Greece. We're talking about the other Athens, Georgia, which is the home of the University of Georgia and the Georgia Bulldogs. We have something in common, John. You and I are both Georgia Bulldogs fans. So come on, hold up that blanket so that everybody can see how proudly you represent those Bulldogs. Yep, there it is, the famous Georgia G.
Yeah, it's a little chilly here in the house today.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. I got this mental image right now of you playing for 20,000 screaming, college fans as they're getting ready to prepare for a Saturday football game at Sanford Stadium in Atlanta, or I'm in Athens, Georgia.
Well, most of our stuff was playing at the club there, but we played at all these different clubs around Athens, and it was so much fun. And we got to play for some homecoming events and some big pep rallies at the stadium and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we just had a great time playing there. And Athens was that's where I met my wife, Robin, and we've been married for 34 years now. And
way to go, man.
It might work out.
Yeah. After 34 years, I think you guys are on track. So, hey, your career, you started recording, you started making some hits. I want to talk about kind of how that career evolved, because let's just be honest, nobody makes it in the music industry easy. It's not overnight success. Even those folks that are on reality TV shows put in a lot of reps and a lot of hard work to get there. So how do you go from playing clubs in Athens, Georgia, to writing and performing some Grammy-nominated songs, some albums that go platinum? Tell us a little bit about the journey.
Well, my recording career, actually, my first album, I recorded in, we released it. It was finished up, and it came out in 1979. It's a record called Humble Beginnings.
Uh-huh.
And I hope none of your listeners ever have to sit through it. It's horrid, but we learned a lot, and we learned about what to do, more importantly, what not to do. And I recorded that album in the basement of my parents' house. My dad had helped me build a little recording studio. We had no idea what we were doing, but we built this little studio. And we recorded my first 3 albums in that studio. And then the next 3 I recorded outside of there. And so I recorded 6 albums between 1979 and the last independent record I did, I think, was in 1986. So did those 6 records over the years. And then in maybe it was a little later than that. My last independent record came out a little later. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I recorded 6 over the years. And then I guess it was late winter of 1992. I was driving home. I was playing clubs in Athens, Georgia. I had moved up to Athens to play, and we developed a strong following there, and made a great living playing clubs around Athens. And we lived out in the country about 18 miles out of town. And I was driving home from a gig. My wife, Robin, had been staying home, but not going to the clubs with me as much and playing, because we had our daughter. And so she goes some, but not a lot. And that particular night I was driving home, I think it was in February of 92 and early March. And the DJ came on the radio. He said, "Joe Diffie fans, turn it up. I got a brand new Joe Diffie song for you." I love Joe Diffie.
Yeah.
I turned the volume up, and Joe sings the song "Ships That Don't Come In." And that was one of those moments, Joe sang, "And for those who stand on empty shores and spit against the wind, and those who wait forever for ships that don't come in." It occurred to me that maybe, for the first time, maybe my dream of being this well-known singer was not in the cards.
Yeah.
Maybe I was going to be a guy playing clubs around Athens, Georgia. I mean, I was in my 30s at that time, and by today's standards, that's old man.
Oh, yeah.
And in the music business. So it broke my heart, you know, it really did.
Yeah.
And I drove on home, got home late, and woke my wife up. And through tears, I told her about this song of Joe's, and I told her what I was feeling. And I said, I dreamed bigger than this. You know, we need to figure out what we need to do. So we stayed up all night talking about a plan, and we came up with an idea that we would do an industry showcase in Nashville. We'd send out invitations 2 weeks before. We'd do the showcase. We'd wait 2 weeks to hear. Then we'd start the cycle again. And we were going to do that for a year and see if we could garner some attention. If we couldn't, we'd punt. But we were going to give it a strong, solid year. If we couldn't do it, then we would just develop Athens and the Southeast as big a thing as we could make it. And we went in May of 1992 and did our first industry showcase at Douglas Corner. It's a showcase room in Nashville. Writers, they have a lot of writers' nights and things. And we sent out 250 industry invitations, and no one came except one guy on that list.
Oh, that's crushing.
And in one way, it was kind of a little bit of a relief because I wanted to be sure when I got to Nashville, I sounded like I sounded in Athens. But on the other hand, it was a little defeating because, you know, this one guy shows up. Well, that one guy worked for Jimmy Bowen, who was the president of Capitol Records. And that one guy's sister had told him about me months and months before, maybe a couple of years before. And that one guy had come to Athens to see another band play, and they liked him okay, but he wanted to go see that John Barry guy his sister had told him about, and he couldn't get in because there was a line down the street. So that one guy came to the showcase that night, and afterwards we went to dinner, and he called me the next morning. He goes, "Hey, Jimmy Bowen wants to have breakfast with you, have brunch. Look, come on over to his house. Here's his address." I said, "Dude, we're already back in Athens."
Wow.
So they set up a showcase a few weeks later, and went up and I did a showcase of just for Bowen, took my band up, and we did it. Walked out of there with a deal.
Yeah. This story is incredible. You really do have humble beginnings because you're recording albums literally in your basement, the studio that your father threw together for you. And on a 4-track reel. And let's just be honest, John, after album after album, and you're making headway in your hometown, but you're really not getting a lot of attention. Other guys would have just thrown in the towel before you get to this one more attempt. We're going to go to Nashville. We're going to give it one more shot. Why in those years in the basement did you not throw in the towel and just say, I guess it isn't in the cards for me?
I didn't know any better. I just didn't. I was single. You know, I was just a guy living at my folks' house. There were some sad things that happened. My mom passed away in 1981, and I stayed there in the house because my dad was there. So I stayed there and lived there with him. And my brother was at college; he was in and out. And my sister, she was married and raising a family, so she wasn't around very much. And so it was me and my dad mainly. And then after my dad ended up moving out of the house, and I stayed there. My dad owned the house, and during that time, I got run over by a car.
Oh my goodness!
and broke both my legs and my left hip, and so I really couldn't work anymore. But because I'd been working at a factory in Atlanta, and but I discovered I could still sit on a stool and play a guitar. So that's how I got thrust into music full time, as I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah,
I didn't really have a choice, and I got very fortunate to get to be a part of the music in Athens, even though I wasn't part of the Athens music scene. When they talk about the Athens music scene, they talk about REM and a lot of the alternative music that came out, and I that wasn't what I did. I just played acoustic guitar. I was like doing James Taylor and John Denver, Harry Chapin, and that's more of the kind of stuff I did. even though we turned into a full on throwdown party act, it was we were so
Sure.
much fun. And Brown Eyed Girl and the whole bit,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and Volcano by Jimmy Buffett and all those songs. But we just had a lot of fun playing in Athens, and it just, there were years between 1980 from 1980 and 1984 when I moved to Athens that I made no money. I was living on frozen pizzas and Super K cola from Kroger, you know. And I got this gig playing in Athens, and I thought, man, this is terrific. I mean, I built a farm over the years. Matter of fact, by the time we left that place, we had 105 acres, and it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And we were really blessed. And, but there were some, when I really never thought much about doing anything else, or am I going the right path, until I heard Joe sing that song.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, am I doing the right thing here? What, you know, is my ship ever gonna come in, as the song says? And that's when we decided to, you know, give it that one lap, give it that big push, and take a year and commit to going to Nashville every 4 to 6 weeks and drive the train on it, see what happens.
Yeah.
So,
well, John, I also want to give credit though, when you are getting ready to pour your heart out, you've sent the invitations out, you've invited a lot of people, and only one guy shows up. Before you even start to play the first song, a lot of people will be so defeated that they're not going to give it their best. They're just going to kind of muddle their way through it and think this was a failure today. So the one guy that shows up is the only guy that really matters, but you don't know that ahead of time, which means you had to have given that show, you had to given those songs everything that you've got, or else the guy wouldn't have even stuck around to talk to you. I got to know what was going through your mind when you're getting ready to start singing and there's only one guy in the room and you're thinking this was a bust.
Yeah. Well, fortunately we had friends and people that knew us in Nashville that came to see us. Yeah. But as far as the industry people, there was the one guy that showed up. So there were a handful of other folks there too. I mean, it's not a big place to start with. And, but we had some friends that came, and friends of friends and things like that. So we had some folks there to sing for, and I'm a ham, man. When it comes to a chance to sing for somebody, you count me in.
All right.
So I'm going to give it all I got, you know, because, you know, how many chances do you get to sing?
Yeah. Well, you meet with the guy who is really going to introduce you to Capitol Records. This sounds like a happily ever after story. But your story is far from happily ever after. You sign a deal in 92, you start to make records, and then in May of 94, your life just takes a really radical turn. Tell us about this medical issue, the medical problems that you went through in 94.
I am defective.
So am I. If it makes you feel any better, man, so am I.
Oh my gosh, I'm so defective. But yeah, so starting around Christmas of 93, just started feeling weird, just different. By the early part of February, I was acting really weird. By March, I told my wife, Robin, she didn't need to be on the road with us anymore. She needed to stay home, raise our family. She was pregnant with her second child. Her mom was traveling with us at the time as well. They didn't need to be out on the road with a band and all those people. I sent them home, and then I quit calling, and this got a little weird. And then April 28th, she found me in Washington, D.C., got my tour schedule, and that we would send out to all the families, and she got a hold of it, found out I was at this hotel, and got a hold of me. She said, "Hey, I'm going to the hospital today. Sean's going to be born today." And I said, "That's great. Let me know how it goes." I was just like, and just broke her heart, you know. And a few minutes later, my road manager gets a call from my mother-in-law, Carol.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I don't care what he's doing. I don't care who he's doing. You get him on a plane home today. And Carol's like the old E.F. Hutton commercials. When Carol talks, people listen. You know, she's a tough one. And so Robin Majors got me on a plane. I don't remember flying to Atlanta. I don't remember landing. I don't remember renting a car. I barely remember driving to Athens. I don't remember going in the hospital. I remember vaguely walking into Robin's room and her not recognizing me. She hadn't seen me in so long. I lost 50 pounds.
Wow.
I was nauseated all the time. I quit eating.
Yeah.
And everybody, matter of fact, the band, I found out later, a couple of years later, that every time I was off the bus, the guys were searching my back room on the bus to try and find the cocaine I was abusing, because I'd gone off the deep end, you know. And so I was there, and I got there about an hour after our son was born. And a little after visiting there, Robin asked me if I would take Sean to the nursery. So I walked him down to the nursery, down the hall. And I was walking back down the hall, and I just had to sit down. I was just like, God, I can't take this headache anymore. It's killing me, nauseated. And I was sitting on the floor, and this nurse sees me sitting there, and she says, John, is that you? And I looked up, as this nurse lady I had known from Athens, and she sat down on the floor, and like all good nurses, she started asking questions about my family and how I was feeling, about is any illnesses going on in our family. And I said, well, my mom, she died of a cerebral brain aneurysm in 1981. She said, oh, wow, it's very different. What about your dad? I said, oh, he's still living. She said, has he had any medical history? I said, well, before I was born, he had a cerebral brain aneurysm as well, but survived it. I didn't know a gurney could go that fast.
Really?
They had me in the emergency room.
The day that your son was born, and you're walking him down to put him in the nursery in the same hospital.
Well, I'm actually walking back from dropping him off at the nursery, and they take me to the emergency room, fly me down there, and they do an emergency CAT scan, and they find right in the third ventricle of my brain a blister about the size of the end of your finger, a cyst, about like basically I describe it as a blister, and it was blocking the drainage of fluid down the spinal column, and causes the fluid around the brain that it continues to manufacture to build up. And in infants, it causes the head to swell because the skull's not developed. Right. In me, it caused extreme loss of appetite, extreme nausea, change of personality, all these things. And so this was on a Thursday. The next morning, they had me scheduled to go see a neurologist, and saw him on Friday. No, so this was Friday morning. This Friday by lunchtime, I was at a neurologist. Monday morning, they had scheduled to have a craniotomy done. Take off the top of your skull. Yeah. Go get it. Put it back together. Jimmy Bowen got word. The president of Capitol Records, he goes, oh, no.
You're not going to saw my boy's head off.
No. So he called a friend of his at Baptist in Nashville, who called a friend of his at Emory University Medical School. And they had a new procedure at that time, fiber optic surgery. They drill 2 holes, go in with a fiber optic camera and a laser beam, poke a hole in it, see what happens, and cyst. So that's what they did, and I woke up, and I was me with a bad memory.
Yeah, right. Because after this surgery, which, by the way, is brand new and highly experimental, but the option is to basically remove the top half of your head, go in there after it, as you just described. When the surgery is over with, you have some relief from the pain, but now you have a complication because of your memory. Describe what happens to your memory after this procedure.
What memory? My manager called Robin, my manager's office called, and he said, "What's wrong with John?" And she said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, he's calling here like 50 times a day, asking the same question." Because I would call and I hang up and I go, "Oh, I got to call him." And I'd call him again. A few minutes later, I'd call him again. And because I had no short-term memory at all. A lot of long-term memory was messed up. A lot of things were just jumbled up, timelines. Even to this day, it used to be, I had that kind of brain that I could dial a phone number, I'd never forget it. Or if I went somewhere, directions, I would never forget how I got there. Now you can't tell me a number, I have to write it down. I can't remember the number. And if I check into a hotel room, my game I play with myself every time is when I leave the hotel room is which way to the elevator.
Really?
99% of the time I go the wrong way.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, it's just nuts. It's just nuts. But those are two things that, remembering numbers and directions are just completely foreign to me now. And, but most everything's pretty normal though, other than that, and so I have some memory things. I have selective memory loss. It depends on if my wife tells me something important.
I have the exact same thing, man.
Pick up stuff at the grocery store. Yeah. It's all selective.
Yeah, I have the exact same thing. I have selective memory loss, and I didn't even have the surgery, and I have it.
Come on.
I just want to point out, it's pretty hard to write, record, or even to perform songs when you've just lost your short-term memory and you don't remember what happened just 30 seconds ago. It's a little bit hard since your entire career as a musician is based on your memory and your ability to recall chords and choruses and everything else.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Teleprompter became a good friend for a little while there.
John, you didn't go through just one. And by the way, this is the moment where you really should be on the top of the world because you've got a record deal. You're starting to make some progress in your music career. It doesn't look like you're just going to be a local Athens, Georgia guy or a southeast part of the United States guy, but maybe this thing really will start to take off. And you don't go through just one health problem, but then you start to have some problems with your vocal cords. Can you describe what was going on there and kind of what it took for you to recover from this one as well?
Yeah. Well, just to throw in another interesting point is the morning I had brain surgery on May the 10th of 94. That's the morning that the R&R chart came on. And I had my first number one record.
Oh, he goes to number one the day that they're wheeling him in for surgery on highly experimental surgery on his brain.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Well, then in 1997, I was getting ready for my Christmas tour. And that fall leading up to Christmas tour rehearsal, I kept losing my voice really quickly. I get hoarse really fast. So I went and got checked up, and then I had a polyp on my vocal cord, on one of my vocal cords.
And by the way, just explain to somebody how dangerous this is to a career musician.
Well, you can basically, the doctor told me, he said, you can go and do the tour and sing around it as best you can. Chances are it's going to be okay. You push too hard, you pop this thing, and it's all over. So,
and all over means you're going to be talking in a little bit more than a whisper, basically, for the rest of your life. Yeah, not just a music career, but you'll be talking to your children and grandchildren in a little bit more than a whisper.
Yeah, I still have some promoters that have not hired me since then because I canceled that Christmas tour on them, and they lost a bunch of money. And what
are you going to do? Yeah. The options are bad or worse.
You think I wanted to cancel a sold-out Christmas tour? Please.
Yeah.
But anyway. Yeah. So that was a tough deal, because She's Taking a Shine was the #1 record. And so I had 2 #1 records and really didn't get to go on the road and support
Yeah.
those records at those times. So
Yeah.
it's tough.
I just I'm going to remind the audience of what they just heard. If you're listening to this, the day that John is coming out of surgery and losing most of his short-term memory is the day that his song, Your Love Amazes Me, goes to #1 on the charts. And, like
You did?
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
I forgot.
And this should be the moment where you're sitting on top of the world and you're really in a life-threatening health condition here, which just goes to show you nobody on the planet is immune from physical difficulties, from disease, from suffering, from, hardships. No amount of fame, no amount of money, no amount of success can make you immune to those things, right?
No respecter of persons.
Yeah. John, you started talking about Christmas. We're going to talk about your music today, the Christmas tour that you're embarking on. Because, by the way, this episode is airing right during the middle of the heart of the Christmas season. But I tell people I've got this little segment that I like to do during the middle of the podcast. I like to have a little bit of fun, lighten things up a little bit, and just talk about things that everybody's going through right now. So since it's the holiday season and everybody is right in the middle of the hustle and bustle of a very busy season, I like to think about the things about this season between Thanksgiving and Christmas that just really mean the most to me. I want you to think about it for a second too, John. And I'm going to ask you, what are some of the things that you really enjoy about it? But I'm going to give you my top 5. These are the top 5 high 5 things that I really love best about the Christmas season. And number 5 on my list is watching people decorate their house next door to me, like Clark Griswold, from the classic Christmas Vacation movie, where every square inch of everything in the house has a Christmas light on it. That has to be some of the most fun, just watching them on a ladder, putting the lights up.
That's crazy stuff, man.
Number 4 on my list is pumpkin spice, but not pumpkin spice lattes. We're now at the point where there is pretty much pumpkin spice ice cream, pumpkin spice pizza. You can get pumpkin spice just about everything right now if you want it. And I like pumpkins. I just don't like pumpkin spice that much. I got to throw this in there because I really believe it. But it also, if you didn't put this on the list, there would be a glaring hole. Of course, the whole peace on earth, goodwill towards men thing, that's pretty cool during the holiday season. But my last 2, and these 2 are probably neck and neck. Like, I'm struggling to figure out what's number 1 on my list and what's number 2 on my list, because these 2 are so close to one another. One of the last 2, and probably number 2 on the list, is people during this season of the year, they think about themselves less and they think about others more often. They give more often. They buy gifts for other people. Their thoughts are just less on themselves and more on other people. And I think that's really one of the things that makes this part of the year so awesome. But for me, hands down, John, it's got to be the music. Man, I love Christmas music. I like the whole range of Christmas music, from Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker Suite to blues to the Elvis's White Christmas, you name it. I like it all. So those are kind of my top things that I enjoy about this season of the year. What about you, man? What are 1 or 2 things that you really like about this time of year?
I think my number 1 thing is getting together with my children, and of course, this year my granddaughter's coming to see us. So that's awesome. She's a little over a year and a half, and so she's going to start figuring it out here pretty soon.
Yeah.
And but she's precious. So last year we went to Texas to see them for her first Christmas, and I got COVID while I was there.
Oh, no.
So we weren't there but a very short period of time and had to come back home.
Yeah.
But getting to spend time with our children and their spouses and spend time with family, that's the most important thing. And then touring, getting to go do our Christmas tour. And touring, go to our Christmas tour. And touring and going to our
And
Christmas.
touring some more, right? Yeah. No,
I
it
do
really
love-
is the music, man. The music is just amazing this time of year. Music is good all year long, but just this time of year, it seems like there's music everywhere coming out of every nook and cranny of society. It's beautiful.
It's really something. You know, somebody was saying that when COVID was at its peak, they said, I was doing an interview and they said it'll be really nice when this passes and we can get back to normal. And it just came out of my mouth. I said, I hope we don't get back to normal.
That's right. Yeah.
I hope we get back to better.
Yeah.
You
One
know?
of the gifts
And
COVID may bring to us is to force us to figure out a better normal, right?
And that's one of the things about Christmas is when Christmas comes, there's a kindness that people have. There's something different about that time of year. And wouldn't it be awesome if we didn't have to go back to normal?
Yeah. If we lived like that all year long, that would be awesome. Hey, you're in the middle of the Christmas tour, so tell everybody about the Silver Anniversary Tour.
Well, man, I love doing this tour. I really do. We're doing right at 20 cities this year, and having a great time. We're going as far away as Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
All right.
And Madison, Wisconsin, which is just north of Chicago. Over into Michigan and Ohio and North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, West Tennessee, Arkansas, I think. I'm not sure exactly, but it's a pretty good route of dates. So we got one in Florida. Just a nice run of shows, and to be able to have done this for our 25th season.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing, and I feel really, really fortunate and blessed that we've gotten to do this.
Yeah. So you're hitting basically all of the cities that matter, from Nashville to Madison, Wisconsin, is what you're saying. You got another album, right? Find My Joy again. Tell us about the album. What about it that you really enjoy? What should people listen for on this album that will be awesome?
This is probably unlike any record I've ever done, other than my Oh Holy Night record, the Christmas record. It's done with piano, acoustic guitars, some bass, a little bit of drums, a few electric guitars, much like the Christmas record.
Yeah.
But it has 45 string players.
Wow.
And we did 6 hymns and 4 new faith-based songs. And it's produced, and the hymns are ones that anybody grew up in Southern Baptist Church gonna know.
You know these, right?
Or a lot of other churches, How Great Thou Art and Blessed Assurance and Great is Thy Faithfulness, and just these classic faith hymns. And then we have, like I said, 4 new songs, one being Find My Joy Again. And it was produced by Steve Dorff. And a lot of your viewers and listeners may not know Steve Dorff, but they know his music. Steve has written so many songs for so many artists like Celine Dion and Barbra Streisand and Garth Brooks and all these people. Me now.
Yeah.
He has a book called I Wrote That One Too.
He literally has the book on it.
A lot of songs.
Yeah. To write a book title like that.
Yeah, to have a title like that. And but Steve brought such a freshness to this record. And the reason he brought such a freshness is because he had never heard most of these songs. He'd heard How Great Thou Art, but he'd never heard Blessed Assurance, or How Great is Thy Faithfulness, or It Is Well With My Soul. And you think, how is that possible? Well, he grew up in New York City and he's Jewish. He called me one day. He said about the Great is Thy Faithfulness, the song Great is Thy Faithfulness. He goes, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful song. Why have I never heard this? I said, well, you haven't been in the Baptist church.
Yeah.
And so so he came into these songs with this freshness and this childlike wonder about, wow, what can we do to enhance this even more? And he wrote the most beautiful string parts. I mean,
Yeah.
just breathtaking. And to be in there with these string players, this big group of players, and they would record their parts, and I was standing there listening, going, "Oh my gosh, I don't even want to sing. It's so beautiful."
Right. Yeah.
And then they go back and double it, and it was like, wow! It would just get so
Yeah.
huge. It was so beautiful, and it was just great. And then there's a few songs. They have a small choir that joined us and sang on it. And it was just great. I'm so thrilled. I can't wait till
I
give me a
can't.
chance to
Yeah,
hear.
I was going to say, I cannot wait to hear this, because almost never do you get a chance to hear a new take on old hymns like you're describing, John. And
Yeah.
somebody who has that kind of musical experience, but has never heard those songs, when they listen to them for the first time and then add their take to those songs, you got something really special there.
Yeah.
Hey, if you guys haven't already checked it out, go listen to Find My Joy Again. I'm guessing that's going to hit on all of the streaming media sources, as well as you can download it out there. How do people find that new album, John?
Well, the best way is to go to johnberry.com. It'll actually be coming out in mid-spring. There'll be early releases going, I think, late February, early March. And with the record coming out, officially coming out the first week of April, I think it is. And so we're real excited about that. I can't say anything about it today, but I did sign, I did a lease masters. I own the masters to the record, and I've leased those to a major label and a wonderful organization. It's going to be
it's going to be awesome, is what you're saying. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. So if you want to know more, go to John Berry, the word berry, like the fruit, johnberry.com.
That's it.
John, I want to spend a few minutes talking about your podcast. You and Robin got a chance to put your hearts and your heads together and to start a podcast. So why did you guys decide to launch Faith, Family, and Friends?
Well, we were sitting around here during COVID, staring at each other, and
like the rest of the world,
I cleaned the flower beds as much as I could and mowed the grass twice a week. And so trying to figure out what to do. And we had a friend of ours who said, "You guys ought to do a podcast." He came down to visit for a few days, and he's a media guy. And he said, "You guys are funny together." He said, "Y'all are, he said, y'all ought to do a podcast together." And so we got thinking about it. And I've got a little recording set up here at home, and I bought Robin her own microphone over here.
All right, she's in the big time now.
Yeah, sat her down and said, "Let's talk." So we recorded a couple of episodes to see what we had, and it was fun. And we did a subscription base over the past year and a half, and just over a year. And we had a great bunch of followers, and it helped us get it off the ground.
Yeah.
And starting in January, it's going to go to a free format. It'll be available on all services.
There you have it, everybody.
Be able to go. There's some great interviews that we have with a lot of different people like Scott Hamilton, and some radio personalities that Megan Alexander she's a correspondent on Entertainment Tonight, and she lives here in Nashville. Bill Cody he's a big time DJ here in Nashville. Yeah. And we had the privilege of July the 1st of having a wonderful conversation with my friend Charlie Daniels. And then on July 6th, he passed away. And it was an extraordinary conversation. I've known Charlie a long time. When I first signed my record deal with Jimmy Bowen in 1992, I signed a deal with David Corlew, who was Charlie's manager and still is, and has managed Charlie's career for many, many years. David Corlew is a great guy and great organization, great people. And but we had a wonderful conversation. And then the first 15 minutes of that conversation, Charlie talks about being in heaven 3 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's quite remarkable. And um, when it took me to, when we recorded the interview on July 1st, and a few days later he passed away, and I couldn't even go back and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And about a month later, we went back. I started editing, and I didn't edit anything Charlie said. I edited some of the stuff I said
Yeah.
and cleaned it up a little bit, but I left every word he said because there are no more words
Yeah.
in this. So it was, I get emotional thinking
Yeah.
about it. It was a great conversation. I can't wait to share it.
Yeah.
Can't
Well,
wait to share it with the world.
most of the world, anybody who's familiar with the music industry and especially country music, knows that Charlie Daniels was a legendary voice in the music industry. But everybody that I've talked to, and I've never had the privilege of meeting him personally, John, but everybody that I've talked to that has met him personally has said he's much more than just a legendary voice. He is just an incredible man. And after he passed, of course, it was a big loss. So yours was one of the last interviews that he ever did before passing.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a force of nature.
Yeah.
And, here he was in his 80s and rocking like he was 25.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Still bringing the devil down to Georgia like he did many years in the past.
Yeah. He loved his wife and his son, Charlie Jr. And in the conversation, he said, "There's only one place in the world I'd rather be than Twin Pines Farm in Mount Juliet, and that'd be in heaven."
Yeah. If people want to find this podcast, Faith, Family, and Friends, where's the best place to go to track it down?
JohnBerry.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go there, and like I said, when it goes onto all the free platforms at the first of the year, still the best way to go is go to JohnBerry.com. There'll be links there to take you to all the streaming services.
Yeah,
you'll see yours on there somewhere.
We'll post a link to your website, but also to Faith, Family, and Friends in the notes to this broadcast. Yeah. John, one of the things that I really love about your story is how you've handled adversity and how strong you have been through some ups in your music career, but also through some downs in health and in life. And I think people can learn from you because you didn't face just one challenge, but it was challenge after challenge after challenge. You didn't let those years in your basement overwhelm you. You decided you were going to be unbeatable. You didn't let the surgeries defeat you. You chose to be unbeatable. For people that are struggling right now, and I've started to ask my guests this as kind of a way of wrapping up this episode. For the people that are struggling right now and they're listening to this episode and they just need a word of encouragement, what's the one thing that you would give them to encourage them to not give in, not throw in the towel, but to just keep pressing on? What would you say to them?
Jesus Christ.
All right. Explain it a little bit more, just so that people that haven't heard or are not making the connection can make the connection, John.
Well, God has a plan for your life. And people say, well, how do you know what the plan is? How do you know what, God doesn't write it on the wall in Sharpie, but God does give us a pathway in his word. And studying God's word, and even if you don't understand it, there are ways of getting we go to Long Hollow Baptist Church, Long Hollow Church. You can go to longhollowchurch.com. There's Bible study plans on there. You can get resources that you can get, and there's wonderful media available where, like, sometimes you'll read a chapter in the Bible and you'll go, what are they talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are resources that'll tell you what that's talking about. It'll explain it in a modern day language of what God's trying to teach us through those moments. And knowing that our this creator created you, he created me, And he loves me. He loves you, has a plan for each of our lives. It makes me want to know him. And I do, in knowing what our plan is for our life, what I try to do is live my life the way I know that God would want me to live my life.
Mm-hmm.
And through strength and faith in Christ. And if I do that, that's how I know I'm walking the plan God has for me, is by focusing on him. I find the most miserable times in my life are when I look back and go, oh, well, you were doing your thing.
Instead of the thing that you were supposed to, that God has laid out for you to do. Yeah.
So it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to be led astray into things that you think are important. But what really matters is living your life in a way that honors God and seeking him. If you're seeking him, you're on the right path.
Yeah.
And happiness on this earth isn't found in anything on this earth. So it's, there's an early 70s Christian rock guy named Larry Norman, who had an album called Only Visiting This Planet.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're just here for a visit. So we have other things to do, other places to go, and it all depends on our faith in Christ. And so that's really my very uneducated opinion about faith.
Yeah. Well, John, right in the heart of this Christmas season, people have heard this before and it bears true. So it should be reminded, or it should be reiterated. Thank you for bringing it back up. There really is a reason for this season. And it's not about gifts, as you've just said, John. It's actually about one gift, the gift. It is the greatest gift ever given, God's gift of his son. And your album, Finding My Joy Again, the Christmas tour, even your podcast, Faith, Family, and Friends, is all designed to just remind people about this incredible gift that God has given. And it's free and available if you would just be willing to sincerely receive it and to accept it. So thanks for being part of this episode today, man.
Yeah, it's really funny. The one thing everybody seeks is love. Love and acceptance and peace and all those things, all that is wrapped around love. And God is love. I mean, we may not, well, I don't want to get into too philosophical. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that we have a God who loves us, our Creator who loves us so much that he sent Jesus. For God so loved me that he sent his only son, that if I will trust in him, I will live everlasting life and spend eternity with him.
Yeah.
Same for you, same for everyone.
That's right, John. Your tour is saying that. Your album that's coming out is saying that. Your podcast is saying it. Man, thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying it loud and saying it often.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good being with you.
It's been great having you on, man. God bless. Hey, if you were to go out and do a Google search of John Barry's name, one of the first things that's going to pop up is his obituary. He has been through so many difficulties and so many trials in life that there's actually a Google entry for his obituary, but obviously he's still alive. Well, I think what you've heard today is a guy who has gone through problem after difficulty and he didn't let it defeat him. And I hope this episode is giving you some encouragement. So if you're catching this podcast for the first time, if you're new to Unbeatable, you can follow us on social media. We're pretty much everywhere. Just search for @Unbeatable Podcast. I'm also building an army of men and women who are deciding, I'm not going to let circumstances beat me. I'm going to get up and dust myself off when I get knocked down, and I'm going to be unbeatable too. And if you want to join the Unbeatable Army, you can sign up at unbeatablearmy.com. Hey, thanks for joining us today. I hope you have a great week. We'll see you right back here next time.